All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Fruits Basket, Season 2, Episode 3. Oh,
right.
okay. We had that
episode.
awesome stuff with Kyo and Toru. It was wonderful. And also Kyo's master.
Yes.
But now, what do we have? We were promised, beach episodes and stuff in that first episode.
Summer is upon us very, very soon. And we could definitely get a lot of good stuff from that. I would love to see basically all the slice of life shit that we can, because the show gets really sad and depressing and dark at
times.
We need
happiness.
And we need happiness.
As much of it as we can get.
We've been getting a lot of good Yuki focus.
We have.
Getting to see him deal with a lot of his own problems, made manifest in unique ways through the characters of the student council. And yeah, I'd love to see more of that. But we've also got a character that's kind of sitting in the background, waiting for her moment to enter.
Yes, Reen.
So that's where we're at. But y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Oh my god.
This was a great episode.
I need more episodes
with
like
Yuki.
This was just wonderful.
So they scared us a little bit with the first few seconds being in the nightmare of Yuki's remembering that his mother effectively sold him off, probably because
of the whole
rat spirit. The whole Soma rat. That whole thing. Now, we don't necessarily need to know the details as to what that all entails. It's not really relevant right now because the episode's primarily focusing on the emotional dynamic of Ayame and Yuki's brother relationship.
Right.
Which is a bit on the fritz just in general, but now we know why.
Right.
Is that there was a point where it wasn't just that he was sold off from the family, basically. Like, that was a whole thing. But also the idea of, this might have been the situation that sent him potentially to Akito.
Sure.
Where Akito then did all the horrible things to him.
Right.
But also the idea of, I cried out to my brother for help, my older brother, the one that should be there to protect me, and he didn't do shit. And it wasn't even just that. It was that he was aware of what was going on. That was the intent of showing him as the scene that he was walking past when she's like, I'll slap you, basically.
Right.
Then he runs over to Ayame, kind of bumps into him, and like
grabs at his sleeve. And
could barely even like. It wasn't like a desperate grab. It was like,
right.
Hey,
please,
may I? Please.
It was a quiet plea.
Yeah, and he doesn't just like turn away. He like tosses him off.
Yep, because from
God.
Ayame's introductory episode was a while ago, but
it was a while ago.
The impression that I got from that is something where he wasn't very close with Yuki because, it's like if there's a big age difference between siblings, it can just, you're kind of in different worlds, right?
You're a decade apart, basically.
Yeah. And then it ended up being something where he wasn't, the impression that I got was that he wasn't fully aware of how bad things were.
Right.
And then it's the, oh shit, I was maybe turning a blind eye as well, but he also didn't know, right?
Right.
And then that's where it comes from, of him wanting to basically mend things. But the idea that no, it got to the point where he did kind of know.
Yeah. And whatever the circumstances as to why the mom did this and all that, the idea of being called a tool does give some potentially kind of disturbing thoughts in that regard.
Yep.
But just the idea that at a point in Yuki's past, sometime that I would say is after this event, Akito essentially had free reign to torment Yuki in whatever way he wanted.
Yep.
And that's horrifying just to know that happened, but it's triply and horrifying to know that not only did your mother, or potentially both parents, betray you in this way, but your big brother, who really, there's something that I really like that they're doing this with this story, is that there's oftentimes explored the idea that siblings are either perfectly knit organisms that have never ever been separated, and they're always perfectly in relationship,
or they're not, and
or it's just
awful,
or it's just they're rivals,
right?
That's my brother, and we fight, whenever we see each other.
They become the villain because of course they do, and then I must kill them or something.
Right. But in this story, we've got lots of different family dynamics in this regard. Some that aren't actually blood family, but in this case, one that is, where, he was indifferent. He didn't hate Yuki. He didn't love Yuki.
Sure.
He just didn't care.
Right. And who knows? Like I can, like, even just supposing, not that it's necessarily important, but I feel like I could get some of the reasonings in Ayame's headspace of why he went to indifference, because if you think about it, if something as horrible as all of that stuff is happening,
and you can't do anything about it,
and he can't really do anything about it, right? Like he can try and stand up for Yuki, right? But you know,
but he's still anything,
right? He's still a kid at this point,
he's
right?
Still powerless,
unless he were to, you know, effectively kidnap Yuki,
or be like Kyo, kind of, and be like, I'm gonna run away. You know?
Yeah, exactly. But even then, that's something that's he can't address the problem with his brother by doing that. That would be more just addressing things for himself. So he kind of shuts down and goes indifferent, so that way he can, you know, his own life can continue, right?
Yeah, and then I love that was brought up. That's basically what it was. Because I feel like a lot of people really, really don't realize how indifferent they are to a lot of the stuff that's just generally going on around them. But the reason for it to be done is not because there's some cold, you know, sociopath. It's because you need to survive. You need to take care of yourself. Now, the difference here, though, is that there is almost like a union, a brotherhood that is so powerful in its potential, in that if you are someone's older brother, you get basically all these wonderful advantages in your relationship, in which you can basically stand up for them in the small ways, but also you can provide that little bit of security, that little bit of comfort, that little bit of extra thing where they're like, oh, you're like me, but bigger.
Right.
So you've got this all figured out, right? No, of course not.
Or at least you're a couple more years down the track, you know?
Right, but in this case, there's obviously like at least a 5-year difference between these
at the very least.
At the very least. Yeah. So we can see that Yuki came to him with kind of a thing of like, hey, like, please, this time.
First and only time he reached out.
Yeah,
oh,
first and
boy.
Last time, yeah. Now, I think that there's some curious implications here. I think you're right in that the reason why, if we're assuming that he didn't actually hate Yuki because of what they said here, is that he was actually just indifferent, is that indifference comes about usually not quickly.
Right. It's not something where you just choose as a binary and then all of a sudden you're indifferent.
Right.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I would say that people who are indifferent in the way that they interact with people have basically been numbed to the point where it's not that they can't feel anything, but there's certain things that are really difficult for them to feel because there was a point where they felt those things too strongly, and they've reduced
in order to survive in the environment that they're in.
Yeah. And they brought up literally that Ayame is like, I actually just don't feel that kind of stuff. Like, I in some way, he didn't say numb as a word, but he basically...
Yeah, I think he mentioned that he was very cold.
Yeah, there's a part here, I easily shook it off. Back then, I neither loved nor hated Yuki. His existence was nothing to me. I first felt the fear when I imagined Yuki acting the same way towards me when he came to visit. I know how much it hurt to be treated with such indifference. If I understand now, it may be too late. Now, that was after, I think, the scene that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, where he makes the initial comment about him being cold.
Right. Yeah. I want to say that was in the beginning here.
Yeah.
But yeah, he makes that comment, and it basically tells us a lot that we need to know here.
Right.
If he's been a Zodiac for a while, like maybe a longer point than Yuki has, because, you know, just age difference. There's also the possibility that there's been stuff that him and maybe Shigure and Hattori have dealt with as well.
Sure.
And this is kind of a thing of where maybe he's like, I know that this is going to happen, but I couldn't do anything before.
Yeah.
But that hurt me. Like, that hurt too much to feel and to care, all that. So now I'm going to protect myself here in this case. And this doesn't have to be this way. this is just a read that we're getting based on the way that the story set things up.
Yep.
In that we shouldn't be so quick to judge people in this story. Yeah, basically.
Right. Like, even in Ayame's case, this wasn't mentioned, but since we don't know exactly what they meant by, like, Yuki being essentially sold as a tool, there's a very good possibility, since Ayame is also a member of the Zodiac, that a similar thing happened with him.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And you know, maybe because he's so much older than Yuki just didn't necessarily see him go through that struggle, right?
And then maybe he was treated with the same indifference back then.
Exactly.
And now he's just accidentally repeating the same mistakes.
Right, and it's no, this is how things go.
This is how I was taught, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And
so now he's trying to redeem all that by being like, I'm the person that excessively cares about everything you have to say, Yuki. Everything at all. I care about it so much that I'm warping my whole life around this. And is it fake? Well, who's to say? In some ways, I would say it's not that it's fake, it's that it's channeled. It's that it's something where he's intentionally seeking out this type of energy.
And for Yuki, a part of it probably does feel fake. Oh, you know? Of like,
it looks fake.
Right, at the very, because it totally doesn't make sense from his perspective, right? Which is one thing. But then also, no, you weren't there when I needed you. So why, you don't actually care about me. You're trying to basically blot away your mistakes from back then. Right. You're trying to make it so that you don't have to have consequences. And sorry, but there is no way that I'm going to actually trust you and any affection you show towards me, because I know that you don't really care. Right. So I'll give you, and because Ayame is very clever at how he goes about it, Yuki isn't able to really give him the same indifference that he would like to, maybe. And maybe that's because the hurt's still there. Right? Because where Ayame would really be in danger of Yuki being indifferent towards him is if he just didn't feel anything about the fact that he betrayed him back then, right? That he wasn't there for him.
It's something where he's still acknowledging him by some ways getting annoyed by him.
Right, yeah. It's that... So if the pain is able to be healed from that, then okay, then that's a path to progress, right?
There's a weird way of looking at this also, where the path to progress is kind of a thing of where by garnering a lot of his frustrations and annoying him so much, he's essentially whittling down Yuki's defenses by basically being like, I will then create such an image in your mind, maybe, that I am the annoying brother rather than the indifferent brother.
Right.
And
because that is not how I am now, and I want to make sure that you are aware of that.
Right. And I cannot let you see me this way,
because I know I was that way.
I was that way, but also if you do, there's a possibility you could become the indifferent brother because of how much you're so alone, Yuki. Like, this is a thing that I really, really, really love about the way this story handles what I would call not just loneliness, but like the way in which these characters are dysfunctional, but they're not actually seeking to solve their problems.
Sure.
Kyo and Yuki are actually doing that right now.
Yep.
That is why this change is happening.
Right. Yuki's whole thing of deciding to go to the shop. Great. Way to go. You know?
That was not easy for him.
Nope.
But he is trying. He is making an active effort here.
Yep.
The difference is that they are not doing this really with anybody else. Kyo maybe has a slightly better advantage in this regard because Kazuma is going to do anything he can to help him, basically. So he's going to be with him through this. While Toru is with them in that regard, she is not actually a peer seeking to change her own situation with this, because her situation is one where she's trying to kind of ignore those things.
She's actually
pushing them into the closet.
She's in a healthier place comparatively to certainly where they started, so she hasn't been forced to change.
Right, she hasn't hit a really scary point.
Right, but she's actually making less progress than they are.
Well, right, of course, because they're making attempts. But the idea that if Ayame's goal is to not just make progress, because that's something that requires a reception from Yuki. He is trying to build the pattern, at the very least, to where Yuki is going to not forget, but basically move on from that. And then Yuki can make the progress maybe for him. So he's trying to set up, almost in some ways, Yuki to be receptive to what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now, I think in a lot of ways, Ayame is a very chaotic and rambunctious and probably a bit reckless of a person in this regard. I think that he is also playing out a little bit of his own insecurities that are left over from that time of being one that did not want to have anyone be indifferent to. So now he's basically such an extreme persona of who he really is that
less might be more.
Well, right, but people cannot be indifferent to him because he's so in their face, basically.
Right. Yep.
And that's kind of sad, really, if you think about it. Like, that's a really kind of sad place for a guy to be in. But I really love this episode focused on giving us also Mine.
Mine was a treasure, is a treasure. I love her addition.
Character.
Yep. Like, there's
scheming her way to help these brothers individually, specifically with Ayame, though. Like,
like it's something where there are a lot of character dynamics in this show, right? A lot of them are quirky, to say the least, right? Like, you know, right. But like, you know, and then there are some of them that are like super wholesome and wonderful. Like I'm talking like Uo and Toru or Hana and Toru or Momiji and anybody, you know, that's not Akito. Like those kinds of things. But even though we have them and they're wonderful, I feel like they're still kind of a small percentage of the total cast, you know, right? Because so many of the people have problems that they're needing to deal with and stuff. Right. So having an extra character that is that just like wholesome wonderfulness for the characters in this show that really have a lot of issues, you know, that they need to be able to figure out how to deal with.
She really only.
I will always welcome more of those.
Yeah, and she only really has a relationship with Ayame. She's met now Yuki and Toru, which is nice. But I like that she's also not like, you know, she's going to be a tertiary character.
Right, exactly. Yeah, she is a supporting character for a side character.
Right. She definitely could get brought more into the story potentially if, you know, Yuki's development keeps, you know, going in this direction where he spends more time with his brother, and then maybe he needs to rely on Mine a little bit to try and get another bit of an insight into where his brother is at. That could be a cool way of doing things. But all in all, very cool episodic little story kind of bit here to give focus to Yuki and his journey being something that he is making progress on.
Right.
But it is scary. It involves basically going back into his past, dredging up these old memories, having them come to the surface, facing them and confronting them by spending time with his brother.
Also with his parents, apparently.
I really love this. Yeah. And a parent-teacher conference thing where he's going to... He's going to invite them.
I'm curious what he's gonna choose as his career plan, though, because that's and I like that he was thinking like I wanna have that like locked down and solid. That way they don't try and bring up their own absurd suggestions.
Yes,
but I'm very curious to see what Yuki will want to do with his life. You know, like what are, and not that you necessarily even know in high school, but like what are the ideas that he's thinking of? You know,
right?
Because I feel like he's such a tender character and he's been hurt so much in the past that I almost feel like he doesn't even feel comfortable a lot of the times with wanting something. You know?
Yeah.
And like even his desire to change within himself, it's something that he's experimenting with. He's tentative, he's testing it out, right?
Yeah.
You know, seeing what he's actually able to handle. And so something like, oh, what would I want to do for the rest of my life? That's a big-ass question for anybody, and I feel like for Yuki especially, you know...
Yeah, he might not be thinking about the future much at all.
Sure, yeah, it's just, okay, you know, like his brother was saying, just, you know, keep putting that one foot in front of the other, you know.
Journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I'm like, yes, that's what he's doing, that's what he's doing, he's taking his second step!
Yep.
Yes!
And Ayame's just going to be cheering from the sidelines, He's like, yes,
go!
My
best big brother,
right.
number one, and
yeah.
Imagine Ayame
whistling and, you know, cheering and...
Imagine Ayame, like, singing, like, belting it out there with, like, Mine and a choir behind him. And baby, now you feel like number one!
Just stop it!
Shining bright for everyone!
Mine's, like, holding up the stereo or something.
Living out your fantasy. I loved the way in which he's like, all right, my shop is not a sex shop.
No.
Like we thought it was. But it is also very much
if people end up using it for similar adjacent
fantasies of that variety,
then that's
hey, to do that.
I'm not gonna get in the customer's way. What they do with it is their business, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I'm just gonna make some really nice clothes, right?
Because the desire to create is something that is universal in all of us, but especially when you're at those points where you feel low and you've lost confidence in who you are, and you need something to remind you that you can add something to this world that no one else can add. This feels very much like a thing that is almost like specifically targeted at Yuki, and I love that Yuki thought about that with his garden. The exact same kind of thing. Was great. But the idea of wait a minute, maybe he's also subtly kind of poking at the idea of here's some career ideas you want to create, right? Whatever that thing is that you want to create, you just thought of it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mentioned this.
Right. It's the whole thing of like...
Ayame's a giga-brain genius.
Like the what do you want to do for the rest of your life? It's like, oh, that's a big question. Stressful question. So it can be hard to answer that question. But that doesn't mean that you don't actually know the answer. You're just not sure if you know the answer.
Right. Because you're not sure about committing to it. Right. The idea of if you could create something in this world...
What would it be?
And no one else would create it, basically. It would be your thing.
Yep.
What would it be?
Oh,
and
hey.
You just thought of something right there.
Right.
You, literally, I'm talking to you watching this video right now. You just thought of something right there.
And you might, and the natural response, I would say, for a lot of people is, but that's a bit ridiculous and silly,
or just maybe like I don't really want it that much, you know. It's just kind of a thing. Like I kind of like it,
and hey, much like Yuki, maybe you have to be tentatively experimental with what kinds of things you might want or be interested in.
Like a little bit of that indifference towards your own passions and desire to create.
Good stuff. And also, great catch on the thing that he makes. His desire to make stuff is best when he's low. Oh. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, most of the stuff was made by him.
Most of it made by him. And it's like, I understand Ayame, I think, a lot more now. The idea that this is something that is made primarily for him. This is his own form of therapy, but also this is something where he could have done anything else.
Right.
It did not have to be this. It was just that he needed to create something. I definitely feel this at times when I'm like cooking or maybe like drawing or writing or I don't know. Yeah, something like that. That's the kind of thing where once you've taken your hands off of it and you just let it exist there in all its flaws and all of its whatever, you can look at it and go, I made that. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good feeling.
It's a really good feeling. Yeah. But all right. Lovely slice of life stuff.
Yep.
Lovely good focus on our
boys.
Our prince.
Yeah.
And the
this is
hilarious moments of Yuki's first awakening.
Yeah.
It's like, bruh, really?
And the whole bit of like Yuki being like, oh, putting the suave on with Toru, and then Ayame actually busts into the like,
it just phases into frames like, this is romance.
Right. Like that was one of the most perfect like awkward family interruptions.
Back up. Give him some space, dude. Like, holy shit. Like, actually, one of the most endearingly not helpful things that a brother can do actually is butt into the romance of your siblings.
Well, yeah, no,
because you can actually kill it before it becomes real.
You can kill it, but what does that communicate to the person? Oh, you wouldn't be able to do romance without my help.
No. I'm not meaning that. It's basically the idea of forcing the connection where it doesn't exist. It's not the idea of you obviously there's attraction between these two, obviously, but the idea that it's romance, no, they're very much in the we need to work on ourselves kind of stage right now. So they're not ready for anything. But if you as a sibling come in and you're like, this is romance, it's like, no, it actually might not be, and it can be harmful.
Well, maybe it could have been,
Well, I still think there's a shot. Basically, I just feel like right now the show understands that we're not a romance show.
No,
we're not a romance show. we might be.
Although Yuki really knows how to be suave when he wants to be.
Yeah. I think Yuki almost.
He's got a bit of that shoujo power.
Well, yeah. If you want to get a little meta with it, I think it's actually kind of sad. I think it's the idea that Yuki can just be like, I'm alone, but if I turn on the suave, suddenly everyone loves what I'm saying.
I know how to be a people pleaser, maybe.
Yeah. It reeks to me of people pleasing. The difference is that he really does care about Toru.
Right.
That's genuine. So it's not just a thing of where
it's just potentially the sad backstory of where those skills came from.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
Y'all, this is a great episode. Thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. So you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.